Yeah, man, I've just been like very busy. So,
Event planning,
huh?
all your event planning.
Well, with the network, I mean, it's a lot of work. So it's right now, it's pretty much just me. Although I got a couple of people helping me. But as far as like the bulk of the task, I have to do it all until there's more automation. You know, the IT people are working with the AI in a good way, and yeah. So, but right now there's just so many manual tasks. It just takes a lot of time. So I work and then nap and work and then nap. You know, just try to juice and keep my body where it needs to be. Yeah, we got 9 people in the house. Just gonna give it a second. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Okay. All right. So, okay, we got Joel Prince in the house from Australia. He's in that Ascension household with our sister.
Yeah, we're in the.
What's
We've
that?
got the crazy Ascension household.
Yeah, right.
My dog might come up and bark a couple of times, and she might jump up in front of the camera. But
Well, there's more and more of these households being identified.
yeah,
Seems like yeah, these kids, and they're all starting to show themselves. But we planned this like 6 weeks ago. I mean, I just had to like put them like 5 or 6 weeks out because I didn't have any room. I've actually done like 5 of these shows in the last 12 days, maybe 2 weeks. But I'm going to start doing some more. But yeah, it's always, and I thought it would be a good idea to have the 2 of you on individually. So I know she's going to come on next week at this time, and we get to spend some time with y'all individually. But yeah, you said that you had to get some surgery, and do you feel like that was had any kind of energetic?
absolutely. So
Yeah.
It's been a whole journey. Like every time I think something's going to stop, the next thing starts, and it just keeps releasing all this trauma. So I think a part of the surgery and the injury was really releasing a lot of the trauma that I had from childhood, and but it's also helping me improve doing what I've been asked to do. So, like you mentioned, the Ascension household, like every single one of us in the household, it's kind of like a team. So Kristen and I are completely different with what we do, and the kids both do different things as well, and we're all just living our everyday lives, mixed in with that. But yeah, as soon as we take one person out of the mix, typically we notice it when that person's gone energetically, and things change. They shift dramatically, and it's a lot of work to try and keep it all in balance. It actually takes up a lot of energy. So yeah, through the surgery, it was an interesting thing because I was in an enormous amount of pain, and I'd been up to the hospital and they sort of played it off. So I just laid in bed for a week because the hernia had been there for some time, maybe it's possibly been there for many years, because I used to work on, like I think in America they would call it a millwright,
Right.
industrial equipment.
Right.
And I work on cars as well, and I think just from heavy lifting and stuff over time, and eventually I was at a point where I was making a change. I'd been told to make a change, and a part of that change I actually hurt myself in the process, and then during that process I went through it was like another awakening again. It was just the pain itself I could live with. It was everything else happening around it, and I was going through periods where the day before or the night before just as I drift off to sleep, I would get shown a film, like a film for about 5 seconds of something that was going to happen in the next couple of days, and it never really made sense. And then everything just started to unfold, and I was told by the hospital that I wasn't able to get surgery for probably like 3 months. So we ended up going down to Bundaberg Hospital. I rang my mother-in-law at 2 a.m. I was just told, I said, you've got to go down to Bundaberg Hospital. Bundaberg's 2.5 hours away. And I'd actually, the day before, I'd actually seen my father-in-law, George, pull up in his Subaru out the front. And he was looking at me through the window. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know what that means. Ruth had actually, the next morning, Ruth had said to me, she messaged me back within an hour, surprisingly. It must have been about 3 a.m. in the morning. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, I was sort of preparing myself to go down to Bundaberg, and George ended up taking me down there. So originally Ruth was going to take me down, but then Ruth got sick. She actually rang me probably 2 hours later and said, oh, Joel, I've come down with a headache. I'm not feeling well. George is going to take you down. And then when George showed up in the morning, he pulled up out the front and hopped out of the car and looked up into the house like I'd seen the night before. So I sort of realised that everything was like that sort of stuff has happened to me for a long time, but I use it to navigate in the 3D world. So actually, it basically tells me that, you know, you're going along the right path. This is where you got to go, even though it doesn't seem right. So we went down there, and they done another scan, and the surgeon said, yeah, we have to operate within 24 hours, Joel. So they operated, and I come back home probably a few days later. Kristen and the kids came down and helped me out. So the whole family helped me out. We come back home, and then I was in bed for a week. And yeah, during that week in the bed, I just started having downloads and visions, and I was waking up in the morning. Like, I was having issues with the codeine, so I ended up having to stop that because I was taking the codeine tablets. And I ended up with post-traumatic surgery as well. Like, I had a lot of swelling and had to go back into the hospital again. And the day before that happened, I would actually have a vision of the doctor standing in front of me. I was actually in the bed at night, and the whole room had changed to a hospital, and the doctor was there looking at me. And then the very next day I went to the hospital, and then that doctor, I'd seen the whole scene again. But in that time as well, I was also releasing a whole lot of stuff, because I think leading up to the surgery I had a lot of blocks, man. Like, I just couldn't, like a couple of years ago, where I was probably in 2021, I was getting a lot of downloads, I was getting a lot of visions, I was having a lot of interactions.
Did you just say that you had a lot of walk-ins during that period? Is that what you said?
Yeah, 2021, man, I've always had walk-ins, but 2021, 22, I had a lot of ET contact.
Oh, contact. Okay.
Yeah, so they were coming in, and I was meeting a lot of I'd met a lot of the elemental guides before that, but the ET guides come a bit later.
Right.
And I hadn't seen them for a fair while, and I thought, oh, what's going on? Like, I just felt locked up. And it was kind of good in a way, because I was having a bit of a break for everything that was happening, because I'd get involved with some pretty full-on stuff. And then when I had the surgery, it just all exploded again, and it just all come back again. And then even in the recent weeks, last week, I come down with this bit of and it was like a bit of a bug, but it was like an ascension thing, and I was just sweating for a whole week, and migraines, and leading up to, I was just telling Kristen, I said, I can't hear anymore, you know, like I've lost my auditory hearing. I said, I'm only seeing now. And she said, oh, that's interesting. And then that night, I laid down, and then instantly, just a new guide came in and introduced himself and told him what. And he sat there with me for 3 hours when I had the migraine, and he just said, "Oh, come out here, do that," and he was guiding me through everything. And then he just gave me a whole heap of, "Oh, here's my puppy. She's going to come and join us."
Hello. Cute.
So during the
So for 3 hours?
so for 3 hours I had an Aboriginal elder come through from Gingin.
What did
So she's decided to join us now. So this is Maeve.
So
that's another story.
Okay. Well, I mean, for you, it's like normal. For a lot of people, it wouldn't be normal. But so you have you have a lot of like what does this elder tell you for 3 hours?
So I do get shown some things. Like I know there's that September 23rd thing coming up, and I do get shown some things, or galactically, and bits and pieces of information about different things that are happening. But primarily, I've sort of realised that most of the stuff that I get told is how to navigate through this 3D and how to actually break down this social engineering that's actually going on, and with all the I know everyone has got the narcissistic tendencies overused, and everyone's in trauma, and everyone's got the narcissistic tendencies, including myself. But I get a lot of downloads to actually help me break down a lot of this stuff that's happening. So more or less, this fellow just said to me that to get back to where you were, you need to he said you need to be incredibly generous to people. Like he said, even someone that gets shown to you as an enemy, you have to be incredibly generous now and just provide nothing but love and kindness to everyone. And even if they're out to do wrong things against you. And he also told me that I need to specifically told me what to eliminate in my diet, which is, I know that's a lot of people get that sort of thing, but for me it was quite astounding, because for a long time there I wasn't really sure whether to cut out animal products completely or leave them in. Like I've been told before to cut them out many years ago, but this time he specifically told me, he said you've got to eat animal products and then limit your grains and all that to try and reduce your inflammation in your body, get yourself healthy again. And
so are you pretty much sticking to fruit and vegetables?
Well, to be honest with you, mate, my diet the last year has been pretty ordinary, and but yeah, majority of the time we eat like fruits and vegetables. But this man told me he wants me to go back to eating meat again, and just have salad and meat and reduce the carbs.
Yeah.
So just to try and balance yourself, to bring more. They're trying to get more energy into this like 3D physical body, and they said that'll actually increase your energy when you're in your dreams. You'll be able to dream longer and
when
do
you're
more of your mission.
Yeah, because I'm kind of like you. I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't like to eat meat daily, but there'll be times that I know I need to eat meat. And sometimes I'll eat meat for like 2 days. And usually what happens is what you said. I'll wake up, I'll eat meat, I'll eat eggs and sausage in the morning, and I'll eat meat at lunch, and I'll eat meat at dinner, which is not something I often do. But then I'll wake up the next morning and my stomach will be empty. And literally, it'll be empty. There'll be nothing in there. Like you can just tell the energy. So, and I do juice and eat fruits and vegetables a lot, beans and greens. But the one thing I have been sticking to is staying away from rice, pasta, bread. I don't really eat bread. There's a place across the street that has homemade bread that doesn't have any preservatives. The kind of bread that goes bad like in a couple of days. I'll occasionally eat, a piece of bread when I go over there. But yeah, I think there's something to the carbs, the starches, I think probably the closest thing would be for me with potatoes. I'll eat potatoes sometimes. But Yeah, I think there's something to that. Definitely, there's something about, like rice and pasta, and everyone's different, I guess. But I can resonate with what this energy was telling you, for sure.
Yeah, well, you think about the Australian Aboriginals, what they used to eat. Like they would eat kangaroos and all sorts of just stuff on the land, and they didn't really have access to any sugar. So his primarily thing was to say no sugar. And even though we do have Aboriginal descent coming through Dad's side, and it's a fair way up, there is a lot of diabetes all the way through, and I seem to have copped that.
You're talking about in your family lineage. Yeah. See, I think there's a lot of stuff coming out about that now. I know one of the things I saw recently was the amount of processed sugar has increased 100 times from what it was 100 years ago, and that it really, they're tying a lot of stuff to processed sugar in all its forms. So I think that's a real premeditated bit of fuckery that was instituted. So you said that much of the time when you're getting this information, that it's really speaking to you directly for you to go through and navigate with more ease and grace.
Yeah, so I've got I needed to get some more insight on that because I kept getting downloads about 3D stuff. So so what I do is I do a lot of breath work, or I'll do a lot of meditation, or I'll drink a lot of RO water, and that'll really help flush and clear your pineal. And
what kind of water?
Like reverse osmosis.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, we buy it in town. It's like, it comes out about $1 a litre, and that seems to help flush the pineal. And as a family, we'll then go to like different places. Like we'll go to Wildcull Island and do grounding, and then as soon as you do that, within 3 or 4 nights, I might get a big download, or I might go on like a journey, or I might be just laying here on this lounge and just like zone off like that, and then I'll have people in the room start talking to me, showing me things. And what I also do is sometimes I don't do it often, but I'll just get a bit of like cannabis and just have one slight puff, like on a Friday afternoon, and then just all of a sudden, bang, just start channeling. I'll just get a bit of paper out and just start writing, and they just start flowing through really quick. And I write down a lot of information, and then I just go, okay, I didn't think of any of that, and then I just decipher through it without trying to judge anything that comes through. So I do different things to try and get information come through, but mostly I'm working within the 3D. So a part of this team, I've got 17 in my team. So I went and seen Mary Rodwell, as we spoke about, trying to get some more insight of what's going on. And then I said to her, look, Mary, I'm getting a lot of stuff from the 3D. She said, well, I know you're talking to ETs then, Joel. She said, because that's what they do. I was like, really? She said, yeah, that's exactly what they do. Okay.
They do. Okay, they do what now?
I've noticed it in some of her interviews, and what Mary told me was that ETs, when they're connecting with people, they'll give you a lot of information about how to live the graceful life, within the 3D. Okay. They'll provide you information about just things to do, like on the weekends, try to do this, or eliminate doing that, or go to this place, do a grounding session here. They kind of, it's hard to explain, but it's all through energy.
Yeah.
And Aunt Mary introduced me to some of these ETs, which I'd seen and I'd drawn photos of before, like pictures of, and I'm not a very good artist, mind you, but I just wrote their names down.
So what do you mean she introduced you to them? Did she explain to you, like through pictures, who they were, what species they were, or did she introduce you to them on a personal level?
So what Mary, when I went to see Mary, I told her about some of my experiences up on craft and some of my experiences being taken by like Arcturians and or seeing like min lights and stuff like that when I was younger. And when I went down there to see her, she said, "What do you want to do, Joel? Do you want to go like hypnotherapy, and we'll go back and we'll look at this scenario and see what it meant, and we'll go right into it because I only seen like certain aspects of it." And she said, "Or do you want to connect more with your higher self, and then I'll show you how easy it is because I was to meet your guides." Because I said to her, I'm always having to go into these meditations. Like I do like a lot of shamanic sort of drumming meditations, like put the headset on and listen to the drum beats at specific range, and then go into like the theta zones, theta states and stuff. And she said, "Oh, you don't have to do any of that anymore." And I was like, "Oh, righto." So she gave me a training session on how to connect with them, and she already knew who they were. So I just laid down on a lounge, and she guided me into a meditation, but I was still very awake. I wasn't like in a theta range. I was kind of like what you would probably label an alpha, where you weren't really thinking too much. You were just really clear and relaxed. And she made me feel really comfortable. There was no judgment. There was no negging or anything about, "Oh, you should do this or should do that." She just accepted me for who I was and what experiences I had. And she then brought down through the guys individually. So the way she did it was, after I went through this first meditation that probably lasted 10 minutes, she said, "Okay, we're going to bring through the first guide, Joel, or the first ET." I was like, "Okay." She said, "He's going to be your main life guide."
No, this is Mary leading you through, right?
Yes.
Mary Rodwell, our sister. This is really cool to get this account. Now, you said she was at this point going to bring the first guide through, but you also said the first ET. Was it one and the same, or is that two different things?
Well, Mary spoke to me, just to give you some insight. They are guides, but Mary basically said to me that they are all extraterrestrials, like the elementals that I have in my team. They're like extraterrestrial origin as well. So they're all Mary. When Mary talks, she's basically talking about connecting with ETs.
Yeah, in a new world where labels are becoming evasive.
Yeah, and we're like the whole like autism, ADHD label thing, like she talks about in the books, is basically just means you can't be programmed anymore and you're connected directly to source. Yeah.
So what happened now? So did this first guide come through? And I mean, I don't want to be too nosy because I'm sure some of this might be personal, but like whatever you can tell us.
It wasn't really too. It was really. It was amazing because I'd already built up confidence because I'd already been through all the fear stage of talking to ETs and stuff. So it was pretty cool. So the first one come through, and she said to me, she goes, "Okay, Joel, now stand up." And she said, and I stood up, and Mary was standing in front of me, and I was looking at her. She said, "Now get your hand," and she said, "and lift it up. Get your left, and then lift it up like this." So it sort of went from the bottom. Oh, it's hard to see. And go up like this to find the height. And she said, when you feel the height, she said, stop. And she said, that's how high, or that's how tall the ET is. I was like, okay. So that was the first thing. And then, so once I established that, she said, okay, Joel, so is this ET a male, like masculine or feminine, or male or female, or is it neither, or is it both? And I said, he's masculine. Like immediately then, once I felt that energy of holding my hand, I'd receive that download, I recognised immediately that I picked up immediately what that contact felt like, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so then I knew straight away that he was masculine, and then that he was Arcturian. So she then said, okay, what does his face look like? What is he wearing? Has he got something on his wrist? Or what's his name? And I just came out, and I won't say his name, but I just come out and said, okay, yeah, this is his name. And then she said, okay, well, what else can you notice about him? And then I could start to see then with my third eye, I could start to see what he looked like. And I said, oh, he's got a cap on, and it's got like a point that comes down like this. And then cool. She said, oh, what's it made out of? And she was asking me all these different questions. And
cool.
And she said, is he wearing anything on his wrist? I said, yeah, he's got like a watch on. She goes, oh, can you have a close look at it? And I said, yeah. I said, when I look inside it, he's showing me, it looks like there's like another dimension in there. Like, it looks like I'm looking into like a black hole or something, and it's like some sort of gateway. And that was like the first introduction. And then she goes, okay, we're gonna have like a conversation with him now. So she just started asking all these questions about whether or not and it turned out that he had been and lived on Earth before, and then I'd had past lifetimes with him before, and I'd been in different relationships, like mother, daughter, and father. There was various roles, and then he was like the one that sort of was the main guide that would channel, like, and directly show me. It's kind of like he could manipulate reality and this whole matrix thing, and he teaches me how to navigate it. He's the main one that actually steers the ship.
He's the main one? Would you say like...
Yeah, he's the
number
one guide.
The number one guide?
Yeah.
So do you and there's no wrong answer, I'm just trying to like get an idea. So do you feel like that, I guess, would you call that your monad or oversoul? Like he's...
Well, she called him an oversoul, and okay. I'd actually seen him many times in meditations before. Like I'd seen him in our room, I've seen him in the bath while I was meditating in the bath. I've felt him touch my hand. Like I've seen him in the bath before while I was meditating. I've felt him touch me, and so I knew that he'd been there for a fair while, but I just didn't really know who he was or what he was trying to tell me. So yeah, he's an oversoul. That's correct. Yeah.
And just real quick, like through this process and afterwards, did you arrive to a certain number of guides, or was this the only one?
No, I had. After she asked a lot of questions about him, Mary then started wanting to quiz him as well, and she kept asking him over and over and over all this different stuff, and it was pretty. Yeah, it was just...
Did you find out anything good? Did you find out anything good?
Yeah, like there's nothing too much to worry about. He's sort of telling me, like, you're doing everything great. Again, you know, he's sort of telling me the same thing. You're sort of here to help navigate through this 3D and to help others and shift energy and whatnot. Yeah, Kristen's just put up Mary is awesome. So Kristen had the same session on the same day, and she met the kids as well. So the next guide that came through, yes, I met 3 that day. And she goes, okay, we're going to bring through the second one now, Joel. And I was like, okay. And then his energy was another masculine guide, and I thought, oh, another masculine one. And he was very tall, so much taller than me. And he was like a lion, sort of humanoid.
Far out.
Yeah, and he, Lyran, he was very funny. Like he wanted to joke around. So, again, prior to seeing Mary, I'd seen him once, when I was laying in the room one day, I went to a mud, like a creek that's very muddy, and walked down there and got my feet really grounded, my legs really grounded for about an hour and a half. And then that night I felt an enormous amount of overwhelm because I started to release a lot of emotion for about 10 minutes. I went and laid in bed, and as I laid down in bed, I'd sort of just roll my head back. As soon as I closed my eyes, I'd seen him standing next to the bed, and I'd never seen him before. And he come down, he scanned my whole body, he looked at me, started my feet, walked up, and then went right up my face, probably about that far away.
Was it like a device, or was it his hand?
No, it was his eyes. He looked at me.
Okay.
So he was so tall that he was from against the bed, and he sort of kneeled over.
Okay, I see.
And then he just scanned my whole body, and then he looked down, and I had my phone next to me, and he took down and he was looking at the phone, and then he got up, and then he stood up in front of me and showed me his whole self, and then it just went bang, vanished, and then I woke straight back up, and I was like, oh, that's another one.
Man, I'm gonna have to stop. I'm gonna have to stop sleeping in the nude, man. If we're getting visitors.
I don't think you can really hide anything from him.
Yeah, I know. Franco told that story one of the last shows he did, where 3 of them came in. You know how he used to talk. He's like, 3 of them came in. They're at the end of my bed, and they said, "Get up," and I said, "I'm naked," and they said, "Go ahead, no big deal." He said, so he had to follow him, and he walked outside through the door into a craft, naked. So.
Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing when you're doing the whole thing naked and you're trying to cover yourself up in the dream. Yeah, so it was. Yeah, Franco, that would have been a pretty cool story. I don't think I've seen that one.
So now this was because this happened before the last time we talked. When I talked to you and Kristen, y'all had gone to Mary's very recently. The last time that we did a show.
Yeah, we went January the 13th.
January, okay. Yeah, because we didn't talk about it too much. Now, so, but y'all did talk about how it was expansive. So, like, from that point, what's kind of happened since then? Because the energies seem to be very supportive of what we're going through these last few months, especially since March. How has the communication been with these guides? I mean, how's that gone? How's it benefited you, or what have you gained from it?
Well, just to quickly tell you before I answer that question, when Mary introduced me to him, and he told me his name, he was very protective, and all the things started to click up and add up now, and then I sort of knew what was going on. So he was very protective and gets really fired up, surprisingly.
About you?
I mean, no, he jumps into my suit, like he'll jump into me, and I can feel him when he's there, and he's just very masculine, like a warrior, like I want to do this, and he doesn't really understand interacting that well between humans. But he's very he did tell me was with Mary was he was very good at like blocking like Wi-Fi signals. So like if I'm in a house or whatever and I'm getting, like if people leave their Wi-Fi router on, you can sort of get corrupted dreams or whatever. He's very good at blocking that energy, and then also he'll jump into the suit and he'll protect as well, and it'll help me. So I feel it. I get very anxious before he wants to come in, and sort of like a mini anxiety attack, and then when he jumps in I just feel incredible confidence, but he's just like says no to everyone, just a hard boundary setter. He's very much like that. And then the next one was the Yowie. So Mary said to me, she said, "Oh, you're all Yowie ancestry, even though your oversouls aren't cheering," she said they're connected. And there's Yowies all the way through that area, and she was most interested in talking about the Yowies.
Yowies
so
is
Yowie
what? Is a Yowie like a Sasquatch?
Yeah, so I'm connected with the Sasquatches, like in Australia, which are Yowies, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Wow.
And they're all around deep water, so she lives she lives at Agnes Water, and Deepwater National Park is just down the road, and they're all down there. And then through that meditation, I could just feel all of them. But yeah, she came through, and that was the third one. Very strong, feminine, motherly guide, and she was very loving, and she was only short, but she was the main one. Was actually telling me how to live life, and she was a very good communicator, like a human style communicator that just everything made sense. She was the one that was telling me about everything that's going to happen, in our life, and some main things that are coming through, and she was very supportive and loving. So since then, mate, to answer your question, yeah, the main difference I've noticed since connecting with them is I've started to connect with more and more, because we stopped at 3, there was 17, and she said that, and I knew there was another 17 more, and Mary said over time more and more will just drip feed in and introduce themselves. So Mary stopped the recorder at 77 minutes and 77 seconds, I think. When she sent me through the file, I went for 7777, so I knew it was pretty full on. It was cool, and I played it back, and then when I played it back, I just picked up a lot more with it, and so through living through everyday life, the Lyran guide is particularly, I know when he's around and he jumps in, as I said, so I can feel him jump in and start when I'm actually navigating in this 3D in difficult situations, which I seem to end up in a fair bit, just because we're trying to break down certain social ideas, and he just says no to everything all the time, and in a way that, no, that's not going to happen. We're after the best for our daughter and whatnot through the schooling system and through work. He'll say no a lot, but and in that time since we've seen Mary, that's where I've also had, again, like further, I've had the operation, and I've had further trauma release. And then, just of recently, I've just had the other guide come through, and he's telling me to take a different approach now, where you're not sort of like hard, like boundary setting with people,
right,
so much, because what happens is, it used to happen to me a lot. Sorry, mate.
No, I was just saying that's true. I agree with that guide.
Yeah, so he's telling me to take that approach, because what would happen in the past when I was very immature, through spiritual development or whatever it is, whatever you want to call, label it.
What's all that masculine energy you got in your oversoul? They want to kick some ass.
Yeah, well, we've also got Jasper in the team too. So Jasper, our dog passed last year. And then when we were driving along in the car, Jasmine said, "Hey, Daddy, Jasper's a big man now." And I was like, "Oh, really?" She said, "Yeah." And then it was a couple of nights later, there was a giant, like ogre standing next to me in the bed and introduced himself to me, and he's actually Jasper. So he's mixed in with them as well. But yeah, when I was actually a teen, I actually felt I carried a lot more feminine energy than masculine. But as I got older, because of what I was doing, decided to about that. My dog's just seen another dog walking past. My teams, they've just brought more masculine energy in, and so what would happen was I would come down, and for instance, it could be something as simple as wanting to rent a property, or I had like an little industrial unit that I used to tune cars in, and before, I had a tenant in there for a while, and before she moved out, she was being like quite nasty, and I just said, I just sort of, without being aggressive or anything like that, I just said, no, this is what we're going to stick to, and she sent through it. She had like some sort of attachments or something, or entities, and they come through, and my elemental guide, little fella, used to, and myself, we used to remove them. And I was trained on by Indigenous elder, like how to actually track these entities that come through that are trying to harm. And we were doing that all the time. And I actually found, and when I did that, the next time I went and seen this lady, she was completely nice as pie. There was like completely no issue at all after we cleaned it up. So she obviously had something that either she created herself or it was latched onto her. So what I actually found is that people, if you come in and actually set these firm boundaries with them, they very much people who don't understand anything about spirituality or thought, they go, oh, I'm going to come out to get you, So it could be the fact that my boss says to me, oh, Joel, I want you to work all weekend. And I was like, no, I just work this many hours and I'm spending the weekend with my family. I'm not doing that. We're going to have to get someone else to help. That itself is enough to sort of have that person then develop some sort of thought construct that actually turns into some kind of entity that comes and it tries to, and I can actually see it, and it tries to actually attack me, and when it does that, we have to remove it. And I found myself over and over having to constantly remove these all the time, and I was taking up too much energy. So by taking a different approach that this elder's telling me to do, I'm hoping to try and eliminate that, and just instead of just setting these boundaries so much, just use love and just be generous. Still have your own standard to what you do, but take the loving approach like all the time. Doesn't matter who it is.
Kill them with kindness.
Yeah. So the big fella guide, Leon, he's kind of, I've noticed he kind of hasn't been coming through as much the last few weeks, but he's still there. So that approach has been stopped. So that's kind of like generally how I navigate the 3D world and how typically it all rolls out. It goes up and down. It's not a linear curve. It doesn't go straight up like it.
Right.
Growth, like I'm constantly going down and up, and if I'm not here and Kristen's here on her own, she then notices if things are hanging around the house that generally my guides would generally sort out, and vice versa. She's totally different with what she does than what I do, and so are the kids.
Man. Now, where are you at? Where are y'all located?
We're in Gladstone, Queensland, which is located about 600 odd kilometres north of Brisbane.
Oh, okay. You're up there a ways. Do you feel like that these guides that you're meeting, do you feel like, as I'm over here and you're over there, do you feel like that they're external, or are they inside of you? Or both?
They're both, man. I believe they're all mixed in together and sort of all a part of who I am now. But when they communicate with me, they know. Well, that's another thing. So when they communicate, they may appear like they're external and they're a friend just walking beside you, but they're actually a part of you as well. If that makes sense. So
kind of like that.
They want to communicate.
Yeah, like that Russell Crowe movie, A Beautiful Mind. Do you ever see that?
Yeah, I was only thinking of that one.
Right, where you had the three friends that were actually him. Which I thought was really powerful, because
he was schizophrenic in that movie, whereas my diagnosis originally young years was actually bipolar, but I've had that removed since.
Yeah. Well, I've had some experience that with a family member, and was spending many years with them, and realized, like, what's the difference between multiple personality and multidimensional? Like, I never really thought about it until I started to get into it. Then I started doing a lot of research, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. But yeah, I don't know. There's just some kind of fuzzy line in between. Like, well, so like if it's me, all right, am I inside of you and over here too? Are you inside of me? And I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, oneness is oneness, and we're all one. But I was just
We're
curious.
all
I
one.
like to,
Yeah.
I just like to ask people that just to see how they feel about it. Because I mean, I don't know that any of us are ever going to get that answer until we get the hell out of here.
I definitely believe we're all one, but we're all different. You're doing different roles. But what I can sort of understand is for myself is just talking about the mental health diagnosis.
Right.
Is if you're taking medication and you're tying yourself up too much in like 3D materialism or trying to, like even myself going through the whole growth as what they would label a warrior shaman. I sort of realised earlier that that's what I was doing, but at the same time, you develop some sort of ego around it, and then I just get the hell beat out of me by some spirit and just feel sick for a month, and then they go, no, we've got to beat that out of you, and you sort of got to get back to where you are yourself. So with the mental health diagnosis, I feel it kind of like shuts off your third eye a little bit when you're buying into it all, and you actually start to feel more depressed and more down and more sore and tired, and you stop connecting to the divine. But as soon as you let go and then meditate again and start grounding again, all that stuff lifts immediately. And my guides have specifically said you've constantly got to keep yourself open and listen to us. And I think that's, if everyone does that, we're all sort of connect together, which is what I've seen with that girl that time. And she had something blocking her because she was being quite nasty. She had been to me the entire time, even though I'd been nice. And once we'd sort of removed that thing, she was just really, really friendly. And ended up getting a lady that I've met recently is helping me out with some stuff. She knows that lady. And I just said, I had good experiences with her. I didn't say anything bad or negative, and she must have known some of the interactions behind it because she's friends with that girl and she's helping me a lot. So that's where that whole thing's coming forward, where just because someone's being mean to you, you've still got to somehow find it inside of you just to be loving back.
Yeah, that's a superpower that anybody can do, right?
So it's very simple. Like everything that I thought had to be all this complex stuff, it just was like, oh, this is just so basic. Like that's the biggest take out of Mary. And don't get me wrong, Todd, like I've had some challenges since coming back from Mary. I've had probably much bigger petty tyrants. So the petty, or what they would call in old Castaneda books, like the whatever you want to label them.
Yeah.
I've had bigger challenges since then and had stronger in like people watching me, like interested in what I'm doing since that's happened. And I've noticed that some of these people also have some sort of power behind them themselves that they can use. I can generally tell when they do once I start dreaming about them and they're standing next to their bed looking at me, with a cranky look on their face. I know that they've got some sort of agenda, and then I'm like, okay, I've got to do some work here on myself. It's generally telling me, mate, ultimately it's telling me I've got to work on myself more and let go and just stop judging people and treat everyone with respect. I think ultimately it all comes back to working on or stalking yourself, working on your own.
That sounds like
self. And
yeah, I'm sorry. There's a lag. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but that sounds like the name of the game for everybody, right? Like, I mean, we've had all these dry runs like Atlantis, etc., and obviously, judgment overruled the heart, overruled sensibility, right? I mean, and to me, the only way out seems to be 100% compassion, which is no judgment. Like,
exactly right.
even like that interaction with that lady, because we have interactions like that every day. And it's kind of like, judgment is like punching somebody. Judgment is a perpetrating energy. And then I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, wait a minute. Somebody judged me. Am I judging them? And then you want to say, I don't want to hold anything against them, but I need to forgive myself first because I'm judging, you know what I mean? It's weird. It's like this whole thing about judgment is becoming obvious to our conscious self. And I think for a long time we would say things like, well, I'm only human. And I think also for a long time, obviously, there was some type of imbalance. You mentioned narcissist. The whole system, the whole realm is a narcissist, right? You know what I mean? Like you cannot have a rational discussion with that type of frequency. It's not aware of itself enough in order for you to have a discussion. And so you hear these stories on this show over the years, and everybody's like, I know I don't belong here. I tried to fit in. Well, if you try to fit in a narcissistic realm, what do you become? You know what I mean? So, but I feel like now that the energy is really supporting us, and not only is it allowing us a bigger mirror or a bigger magnifying glass, but it's also allowed space for us through our work to get the coding or the information like you're describing in your situation. And I don't think there's anything better to get for any of us to get right now than to get those types of epiphanies and revelations, and then be able to actually apply them, and then be honest enough with ourselves and with each other, hopefully, that, hey, I'm not quite there. I'm still working on it, right? I'm still getting my ass kicked from time to time. But it's the real thing, it's the real deal, It's like people... Well, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just had something come through just as you were talking about that. It just dropped in I was told to pass on, was generally in different scenarios with these different energies coming through to support you with this narcissistic realm, there's different animals or spirit animals that will come through at different times, and they're another great tool. So it could be a turtle, or it could be a dragon, or it could be a crocodile, and I just have the dream where I'll do a meditation and I'm like, oh, I'm going through this now with the family, and the world's going through it, and what do we need to get through it? And the last one that come through to me was like a turtle, so they're just saying you've just got to swim with grace, and go with the flow and take things easy and cruise slow. And other times it could be a crocodile, which is more of a more powerful defensive animal to help you through a more difficult situation that could be quite intense. Or there could be cats, and in fact, there's so many different things come through, and there's a lot of different meanings if you research them, but I can generally tell immediately, intuitively, why they're there for. I can see and understand that, and that tends to help a lot when you're sort of navigating, because that's the most difficult thing. Like I've tried sort of hiding away from it all, and I tend to get a bit depressed when I do that. And again, like I'll have the guides come through and say to me, hey Joel, like, you've got to do this next, and they just keep pushing me back into that direction to keep breaking it down, and I don't really fully understand what it means all the time, but that's what's been happening. And it's just having that compassion for everyone. And Maeve, like our little pup that just come up and introduced herself earlier, she came through in a dream as well. I think there was like 1,000 of her that come in before we got her. And so she's of the animals that play a big play a big part in our family overall.
Yeah, I think they do play a big part. I remember Franco would say that that dogs share one soul, and so they basically have not strictly, but in general, have a singular function. In essence, in service to us, to support us. And that's why I've always felt like everything is upside down, and we think they're a pet. We think they're a soul. You know what I mean? They're doing soul's work, and they probably understand it better than we do. And everyone knows that's true with cats. Because cats clearly see things that we can't see. Anyone that's hung around cats or is a cat person. Yeah, I'd say
the cats here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say they're I guess as time goes on with this thing that we're involved in, we're going to get more of that information. Did you in January when this all started and even up to now, are you getting any collective information? Because it sounds like the way you explain it, you're doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for everybody. But do you get
I'm trying not to come across as sounding like it's all me doing something and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm kind of trying to do it to be a part of the collective self.
Right.
And all work together to break down. I just feel like something's coming and everything's my opinion on things. I can actually see the narcissist is actually getting more frustrated. I had an email the other day, someone exploded at me, and that energy is coming directly through the narcissist itself.
Right.
And in that realm, and that's sort of like, I just wasn't offended at all. I was just like, okay, I was humiliated then, but it is what it is. Like, we just got to keep moving forward. It's like we're just penetrating everything that's where it's not like they're here and we're over here. It's sort of like we're now like infusing together and trying to push and disperse all that. It's like a fish tank, like when your fish tank's full of water and then the bottom in the gravel is the bottom 1 centimeter is full of all this anaerobic bacteria, and if you stir it up, it can actually kill the fish. So they say not to touch it, and it can make you sick. And that's sort of what happens when you go in and navigating through this 3D. So you penetrate into all this stuff, and it literally overwhelms you, and you've got to do a lot of work for yourself. But then a few months later, you see the results starting to come through, and it's just a matter of consistently. And you might get beaten down, like we did with one scenario there with Jasmine with the school. Kristen was doing a lot of work, and she was getting beaten down all the time. And every now and then, I'd come up and support her, and we're always sending positive energy. And then in the end, the outcome was great, but it took a long time. It doesn't happen overnight, and we're going to continue working, and I'm sort of doing that now through the workplace, but just society in general, in shops, and saying hello to people that would walk past that normally wouldn't say hello to. I'd say, hey, how's your day going? And just being kind. I think that's the greatest tool we can use. As far as like a crazy download, I think I had something happen there a couple of months ago where I was in the desert in the US, and I seen this big military camp set up in the desert, and I was in there, and they had all these shipping containers all stacked around everywhere, and they had a big operation going. I don't exactly know what it was, but I seen some weird stuff going around. It was like these little robot circle things that were spinning and moving around on the ground, and there was just a whole heap of normal people wearing military uniforms walking around. And I walked into this shipping container, and it was sort of set up like just set up like a standard sort of room that you would see on a you see shipping containers set up. You go and you'll have like a kitchen and tables and all that sort of stuff. When I sort of walked around and had a look at the place, I noticed it was sort of like that. And I went into one of them, and there was a man in there, and he was probably about 7 foot tall at least. And then he told me that he was like he was like leading this operation. I didn't specifically ask him, what are you doing, but he was showing me like, what are they working on. But he turned around and he pointed down at this machine, and it was like a bed that it looked like a big, like 500 or bigger, like 1,000 litre rectangle refrigerator with a clear door on the top. And then it had a freezer, I should say. And then it had like digital writing on the top, and it had like a long like serial number. It had all these zeros, and there was someone inside of it. And the next day, I went away, and then came back again. And the next night I went back and revisited this place again, and he was there again at the start of his shift, and he was doing like a pre-start. Then everyone left, and then he was standing there talking to me, and he was 1 foot taller, and he told me that he was a drone, like a what do you call them?
Clone?
The clone. And he said he was the same person. He was like a hybrid of some kind. He looked like very similar to a Lyran, but he was very fit. This guy was now probably 8 foot tall, and he only his head was just nearly touching the top of the shipping container. And he said, I had to made myself bigger tonight. And then I looked over, and he said, I've recloned myself and downloaded the information inside of me. And that was something that was very clear to me, that there's stuff like that going on the earth at the moment. This is not something that I've read anywhere.
No, I
really
totally, I can totally feel this is true. Do you feel like that this, I know we really do struggle, and we should be struggling with any kind of identification or definition or label, but
yeah,
does it feel like remote viewing to you, or does it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you're actually there and having these conversations, and it sounds like the feel for me like that freezer looking thing with the digital, and then with the number thing going on, to me almost speaks to a soul signature and to stasis, like being in stasis, because I know I've had those experiences where I know I'm in stasis, like on a ship, go onto the ship, I'm walking around like you are with this guy, and I know that on that ship I'm actually in stasis somehow, but I'm in this other body or something like that. I don't know, but I think this is the kind of stuff that's really going on, and I don't mean like, oh, it's mysterious and conspiratorial and all that, that literally, as the indigenous said, when we are awake, we're dreaming. So there's a whole bunch of information that we're we talk about a memory being erased. What's gone on in the 8 hours we went to sleep, or in meditation or whatever, like what are we not remembering? And I feel like a lot of this is going to come out. And I also feel like, and I have said this for years, that there's something about Antarctica, way beyond what people talk about, way beyond Admiral Byrd, and way beyond, they're doing some fuckery or whatever the case is, but that there's something going on there, almost like we're on the surface and the last to know, or something like that. I don't know, but I've always felt like that. But yeah, your story resonates a lot. It really does. And how often does this happen to you? Is this happening to you every day, every night?
Not particularly every night, but I'll go through periods where my sleep is just all messed up, and it just feels like I don't sleep well at all, and I'm everything's muddled up. Nothing makes sense. It's sort of like looping. And then I kind of realise I've got work and clearing to do. Once I get past that, those lucid, well, whatever you want to call them, ADs,
right.
They will happen randomly without me knowing. Like, I remember going up to a beach one day and laying down, and I went into another realm, and I was asleep for like 10 seconds, and I seen like my friend that had passed over and who'd lived there on the boat. And it's all different, and I can't really pinpoint it. So if you actually, the thing you said about how do you label astral projection and remote viewing? Well, I've watched that video you did with Darius.
Right.
And I also know Panay Andov and done training with him for like about 6 weeks, and he's like an astral traveller. And if you in his training, he specifically says to do astral projection, you shut your body down really slowly, and then you can get up and walk around and navigate the whole earth like nothing's like different than it is now. Whereas the lucid dreaming, I find it's more, you'll go into a place, like if I lucid dream in this house, the stairs sometimes will be, instead of going from north to south, they'll go from west to east, or there'll be a room somewhere else, and it's all things that muddled around. And at times I'll find myself somewhere and I'll be thinking about it, like down at the Bundaberg River, and then all of a sudden I'm standing down the Bundaberg River and looking, and I've always been confused, thinking, well, have I astral projected? You know, if I'm flying over looking at a place that I'm interested in, Yowie research or something like that, that's all locked in, you can't get in there, and I'm flying over the top, is that astral projection? Or if I'm doing like a shamanic journey where you listen to, around 200 beats per minute, generally the experience then sort of goes into more like what you'll read about the shamanic journey experience, and it's different again. And I just have there's so many different experiences that I can't really label any of them. I generally just say I've just had this experience and this is what I've got out of it. I try not to say that I'm an expert astral traveller, because I don't believe that I've really spent that much time doing that. I'm just more, I don't typically force myself to try and astral travel. I go with the flow, and whatever comes, whatever experience I get out of it, I get out of it. Generally what they say is if you want to not go to sleep and you want to stay in the lucid, is you look at your hands. So lift your hands up straight away. That's what Panay told me. It was in Castaneda's books.
You mean when you first wake up, put your hands up in front of your face?
If you can consciously do that. So I believe you sort of, at the moment I'm not very, very fit. That's why my guides are telling me to get a little bit more healthy in the totem, or whatever they call it, the 3D suit. And then when you do that, you'll get more power in the dreaming state. But typically if you want to stay in there, you get up and look at your hands. And then when I started getting more experiences, I found myself naturally, when I'd be walking through the house or something like that, I'd look at my hands and go, okay, I'm in a dream. But they've been so profound of late that I haven't even realised that I'm actually dreaming. They just feel like they're real.
Right.
So I had I've had a couple this year where I've been down to the main street of Gladstone, and I've gone into the work office and walking around. I literally felt that I was at work and working. But then I walked out the back door, and this is something that's probably sounds fairly bizarre, but this is just typically what can happen. That's when my guides are sort of showing me, don't trust this person. And I went through the back door, opened it, and then a friend was out the back, and he said, oh, hey, Joel, can you have a look at my car? I'm having some dramas with it. for some reason his car was parked out the back of the office and he was there and it was broken down. I was like, yeah, no problem. And he said it's down there underneath. And then when I got down there underneath the car, I was looking at the suspension and I was like, oh yeah, here it is. And he actually attacked me then.
What?
And jumped on my back and attempted to rape me.
What?
Yeah, and I could actually feel
In broad daylight? Are you
yeah,
speaking
broad daylight,
energetic?
I could actually feel this guy's penis trying to penetrate, and I actually sort of then realised that I started to wrestle with him. Then I actually grabbed hold of him, turned around and grabbed hold of him, and I was holding him. I was like, what are you doing? What the hell's going on? And then that's when I went bang and woke up, and then I actually realised then that had actually happened in the dream, and it was actually showing me that person probably shouldn't be that trusted. And but again, I've just noticed of late when I've been doing more of this, whether you want to call it remote viewing or astral traveling, I've had whether they're familiar spirits like they talk about in the Bible, but typically I don't believe they are. I think it might be an aspect of that person's self. We had another one there the other night. Yesterday, well, not last night, the night before. I had I'd went up to the library, and I was inside the library, and I went inside, and I was walking around looking at these different books and reading, and then I walked out of the library and went out the front, and then I was sitting on the chair and I was waiting for Kristen to come and pick me up, and then while I was waiting, I felt something running behind me really quickly. I turned around and there was a man charging me. I know who this person is as well. And then I had to grab hold of that person too to stop this attack, and then I woke up again. So typically I find, unfortunately for me, all the experiences I have, they're not always like what you would call positive. I always have experiences where I could be getting attacked by someone, which could be, again, something on whether you want to call it the astral plane or
Well, it's
another world, or
yeah, and then communicating to you in some way, heads up kind of thing, right? Like heads up, or maybe some information. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating because there's just not one size fits all. It's just there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like I listen to you, and I can relate to some of the stuff you're saying, even though it hasn't happened exactly the same way. But at the same time, I can feel the truth frequency, and then also, like, I notice when you're talking or other people I'm talking to and they're telling me something, it's like I'm there. You know what I mean? It's like instead of watching the movie, I'm actually the person who's telling me the story and talking to me. It's, you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like that's really coming on these last 2 or 3 months. Some type of furthering of like the beehive intelligence. Like you're telling me a story and it's almost like you put me in a virtual reality and I'm you. Like just stuff like that. You know, there's stuff like that where more and more people speak to it, don't hold it in, and somehow or another when we share it, everything grows in power, in our reality, in presence. And so what, after Mary met your kids, met you and Kristen, what'd she have to say? Did she spend any time with your children?
Yeah, so when we went to Mary's, I wasn't really sure what to expect because I'm like, oh, it's Mary Rodwell's house, and I'd already been interested in ETs for so long, and even during the 90s and 2000s, I'd always watched documentaries on abductions and all sorts of stuff, and then started reading about Mary Rodwell. And so for me to go to Mary Rodwell's house, I was incredibly, in some ways, nervous. but at the same time, I found her really easy to communicate with when I was emailing her.
Right.
And so when we first got there, I was like, okay, Kristen's going to go first. I dropped Kristen off to Mary's, and we met her at the front door, and then we're like, okay, we've got to go now. So we dropped Kristen off, and Bodhi and Jasmine come with me with the dog, Maeve, and we drove back around to 1770, which is like a headland, just 5 minutes away. And it was raining, and we were going to take Maeve for a walk, but Mary ended up ringing, or Kristen rang, and she said, Mary wants you to come back and you can stay in the house, take the dog inside as well. So we sat in a room in her restroom, like lounge room upstairs, and with the kids and the dog, and while Kristen did her session. And then after that, I went downstairs and did the session with Mary. Kristen went upstairs, and Mary was like very concerned around the well-being of the children, and very concerned about the dog, and was worried in general for us. And she's particularly very interested about the kids. She was asking them questions, and our kids, like, if Bodhi will probably answer his questions, but if you ask Jasmine a question, she won't answer it. So you can say, Jasmine, what are you doing now? And she can particularly ignore you. But then later on in the day, she'll come out and say, well, Daddy, if I close my eyes at night, I can just see everything in the room. I can see spirits, I can see orbs, I can see ETs, She can see all this different stuff. And I mentioned on the last show that I've seen Jasmine floating through. Sometimes she'll poke her head through the wall and look at me.
Yeah.
And so Bodhi's had many different, they're very different in the experiences they have. Like Bodhi sees orbs and stuff a lot in the waking life when he goes to different places.
Right.
And has things follow us, and he'll talk about it. So they run this down with Mary and we sort of told them what they'd sort of experienced, and she started to ask them a fair few questions. But at the end of the day, it was quite late, and Mary just said to us, next time you come down, just give me a call and bring the kids in. She said, I want to sit down and have a chat with them.
Yeah, that's what she did with some of Elsa's kids. Elsa.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it makes sense to me if you just take a household, right? I made the reference an ascension household, but like it would only make sense that if the collective consciousness of the household was bigger, kind of like what's happening with the world, then more people are going to, you're going to see more of the visible lights. The visible light spectrum itself will take on more, illumination, or be able to be seen, which that's what it sounds like that's happening in your home, and with those involved, even when they leave the home.
Yeah, like it's. I used to probably be a bit more vocal about it a few years back, about telling people experiences like in person, but I just found they started. You just thought, this guy's weird.
Yeah, of course.
But it trips me out if I go down to my little industrial unit and they're in there, and then I'll just be doing a clearing or something in there because the energy next door's was quite horrendous, or there could have been a fair bit of alcohol use or whatever the night before, letting some sun in, and then I'll be just sitting there, and then one of the doors will just open up, and they'll just turn around. I've even seen the real estate agent do it, because one of the doors was closed there last weekend, and it just opened up, it just clicked open and just went like that, and then she's turning around and looking around in there. I've listened to a fair few of the SouLSPEAKS shows in there before, and listened to some of your when I'm clearing down there, I've played like Ty and yourself and some other people that have come on to try and clear it out. And I'll just do a bit of a sage through there and a bit of breath work through there. And when I do that, I hear some loud bangs and stuff on the walls. And when something's in there, because if you've got an empty dwelling, it tends to attract different entities. And so that's where you can sort of see when the real estate agent lady was there, she seen that happen. She just turned around, she's like, oh. She was tripping out, and I didn't say anything, and I've seen a few people do that. And I just thought, I don't know what that is. It's typically in hospitals, man, is another place where, mate, that's off tap, the remote viewing in hospitals. It's crazy. Like when I was that's just another thing that just popped through. Every time I'd go into hospital and I'd lay down, I'd see so many different people coming through and talking to me, and I'd always see this Christ or like a symbol that I'd see a lot too when I was at Mary's. It was like the like a Celtic cross,
right?
Like in the Queensland Ambulance Service, there's a red Celtic cross, which means like safety and protection during times of war, and they basically always showing me that. So every time I'm in hospital, I generally see like a man come up to me, and he could have like a Celtic cross tattoo on his arm, and he'll flex his arm muscle in front of me and show me the tattoo to say, I'm here, you're getting protected. Or I might see a lady come through with like gap teeth and like curly hair and be mix of like grey and black.
It's like that?
Not quite that one. It's more of
It's like that one?
I'll see if I can find it. Queensland.
Oh, Queensland. What did you say? Queensland Medical Ambulance?
Yeah, Celtic cross. Don't know if you can see that.
Here, let me see. Hang on. Let me go back. Oh, I see what you mean. That looks like, I think that, and I'd have to go do some research real quick, but I think that has to do with like the Templars. I think they call it the Rosy Cross, as in Rosicrucians. Robert Sepper speaks to a lot of this stuff on his programs.
I need to do some investigation on it.
It's like I think it's called the Rosy Cross. Let's see. And it goes to the Rosicrucians. It goes to, if I'm not mistaken, the Templars. Here, look. Here we go. Or the Rose Cross. Let's see. Images. Yeah, there's something to that. Here, let's just take a look at some of these. Yeah, so these are different colors, but that yours is like more the horizontal and the vertical are the same, right? They're the same length.
Yeah, if you sort of see that black one, in that middle row there, a couple across. It's like that, but red, and then more even.
Well, the red one is the let's just see here's the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross right there. I believe that's the Rosicrucian. Let's just see what the real quick with the Rosicrucian cross. Here we go. Images. I wish you could blow that up.
Yeah, I can see one of those top
up
ones.
Here, yeah.
That red one, maybe one of those red ones up there. I can't quite.
So that's what you see. That's what you see when you go in. That they show you the cross.
Yeah, and it also pops up a lot. Like
oh, here we go.
When I was in the.
Yeah, here we go. We got some people that know. All right, that's the Templar cross, the Maltese cross. Yeah. So there's something to that.
Something I've got to do some meditation on and research more, because Mary's very interested in it. And they basically told me I've got to just keep following that energy. Yeah. And it's like, this is what Jasmine picks up a lot. And I sort of everyone in this family picks up a lot if we're sitting around and we're watching TV and we'll be talking about something. Especially if I'm in a meditative state, I really notice it and I can understand it more. Where we going, oh, we could be talking about ducks or something like that, and then a few seconds later, ducks will come up on the TV, or they'll start talking about ducks.
Right.
We'll be driving along in the car, and Jasmine's like, oh, there it is again, so she sort of spots the whole Matrix thing. And we're like, oh, okay, this is all like playing out, like you said before, like we're actually dreaming this reality, and it's all feeding in. When we talk about it, we're manifesting it immediately. So with the crosses, after I'd seen that dude in hospital with the cross, I thought, oh, I wonder if this guy's good or bad, but he's got the cross and he's there to, at first he's there to protect me. And within days after that experience, because I'd been in and out of hospital probably 3 or 4 times because of complications and stuff, and I was getting like healings and whatnot from my guides as well in the time in between, But all through that period, I was just seeing crosses, like since seeing Mary, just seeing them all, noticed them more all the time. Like I know you drive down the road and you'll see the cross on the church, or you'll see the ambulance go past. And the Queensland ambulance in Australia, it's 000, it's not 911. And 000 is a powerful angelic number. And you'll see the ambulance drive past with the cross on the back at certain times of the day when you're thinking certain things. Or it just could appear on TV, like I was watching this little cartoon with Jasmine, and in the background there was the crosses in the background, and then the sun risen up into the cross, and then it showed all these hidden crosses in the background. So more and more I'm just seeing them every day.
There's something to that, no doubt.
So what has Max said? It's the Celtic cross of all direction, upper world.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Lower world.
The
very
cross.
It's like a medicine wheel.
Yeah, but see, it's like tied in the cross of Malta, the Maltese cross, the Rosicrucians, even the secret fraternities. Because what we call secret societies, even the idea being that there was purity in those things, and they became corrupted, like so many other things.
I agree with that.
So like even like the swastika, it's seen in a very negative way. But if you go back and look at virtually all the sacred texts or cultural, philosophical, religious texts, our histories, they have that symbol. It's a very powerful, meaningful symbol. So you look at our whole perception of it, or what's been handed down to us, and like so many things, we're led to believe it's something bad when in fact it's hiding something that's very good about it or powerful about it. So these are the kind of things to me that are coming to light. They're going to really make a lot of sense in terms of the symbology, the way that we process things, the way that we were programmed. A lot like your story in your own journey, where you're getting this information and having these experiences and you're figuring shit out, basically. You're becoming more liberated, more free, as well as the personal responsibility that we all have, or the personal, how would I want to say this? Nobody can do it for you. Like, I like how you talk about things and you go like, I still got work to do, in judgment, or I have work to do, or I'm changing the way I'm doing stuff based on the intel that I'm getting from these aspects, which is not to put these walls up, but to work with the energy that's in front of me, basically.
Yeah, and I think I will to the day I'm not on this earth anymore.
Oh, I ran over. Yeah, we've got a show Sorry about that, Ernestine. Did I run over? Or I thought we had another hour. Hang on. Let me see. Where are we at?
I'm at 11:07 a.m. in Australia.
We're supposed to start a show, 7 minutes ago. My bad. All right, dude. Man, it's good seeing you. I look forward to seeing your beautiful wife next week, and we'll talk more about this wild Ascension family household. Thank you, everybody, for the information. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the Spotlight Show of the week. And if you'd like to hear some great music, great soul vibrations, go to SoulogyNetwork.com. Ernestine, the soulful guitarist, Vibrational Journey Show is going to be starting in about 5 minutes. And come check us out. SoulogyNetwork.com. You don't have to be a subscriber to see what's going on there. You just can't interact with like the videos, but you can at least see what we're doing. And more on that later. So we can get over to the show. Thank you for reminding me, Ernestine. And Joe, I'll see you later, brother. I love you. Best to your family.
Take care, brother.
You too, man.